Hey, it's your girl, Stacy Bullock, host of Tools for Everyday Living. Sometimes I just get caught up in that music. It's so wonderful and soothing to my soul. You know, May is Mental Health Awareness Month. And today we are going to have a much needed conversation. And not just today, actually, we are going to extend this through the entire month of May. So stick around, hang out with us for a little while. And I said us because the guest that you see today will be the guest that will be with us the entire month. I'm so excited. I'll tell you who it is in a minute. But let me talk a little bit about this topic, mental health. You know, it's important that we have this opportunity to promote open conversations, to have some substantial dialogue, because this is an important factor. We talk about everything else. We talk about diabetes, we talk about cancer, we talk about being overweight a lot, but we are, I believe, in my opinion, neglecting to speak more openly about the topic of mental health. We may brush over it for a moment during this month, but we need to bring this topic as to the forefront, and something that is recognizable for all. You know, the veterans, I'm a veteran myself of the United States Army. The Veterans Affairs talks about mental health a lot because they're discovering that we may have missed some things for a long time. A few wars have gone by, and we are coming to this conclusion that there was some psychological damage being done while our veterans were fighting a war, keeping our country safe. So it's not just in specific cultures per se that this topic is taboo. The culture itself can be the military culture, the African American culture, it can be the institutional culture, meaning people who are incarcerated. There are many cultures within cultures that need to speak openly and be ready at any moment to deal with this issue of mental health, which, oh my goodness, we could tie it into so many things. I work with homeless women, and I've always gonna say 8.5 out of 10 have some sort of mental illness that is not being addressed effectively. Notice I use that word on purpose, effectively. We need to make sure that we dedicate more time to becoming aware. With awareness, we can have a better understanding, we can have better insight to something that you can't see on the outside. But we know that there's something going on with an individual when they're not able to function properly in society. And just because someone is not able to function properly in society, that does not mean we throw them away. That does not mean we do them like things were being done back in the day and we allow individuals to just live in the basement of homes, or they stay in their room while the rest of the family has dinner, or they can't come to the home because they of their disruptive behavior. We have to find a way to delve into that, and I want to just uh, put this scripture out there because I know that my guests will be able to give us a little more insight on this as well. It's Ephesians 1:18, and it says that the eyes of your understanding may be enlightened, that you may know what is the hope of his calling. The his is God. And what are the riches of the glory of his inheritance among the saints? We need to know. We need to be enlightened. We need to understand. We need to have some comprehension. We need to get information. We need to build up our experience in this mental health arena. For some reason, there is a huge stigma with this, and it seems to be that people want to avoid it and not deal with it. But we get ready to talk about it right now. And I want you to join me in just taking a moment to relax, to be calm, to center yourself so that you can be the recipient of this wonderful information that is getting ready to be shared. And I want you all to now sit back as my guest, Pastor W. Eric Crooms, is being introduced.
I'm Pastor W. Eric Crooms, and this is the Believer's Report.
Black religious faith is facing perhaps its most challenging period.
Pastor W. Eric Crooms is a faith influencer, speaker, and transformation coach who values dedication, service, and excellence. As a ministry leader and coach for close to 4 decades, Pastor C brings a unique, transformative, and holistic perspective to the lives of his clientele, empowering his following to unleash their purpose for a purpose and bring good to the community. Using real-world examples and biblical anecdotes, Pastor C unveils how each person in the life of your organization brings a wealth of promise that can be used toward positive and purposeful change. A native of Phoenix, Arizona, and author of 6 books, Pastor C learned the value of dedication and service coming up as the third of 6 children whose parents, the Reverends Charlie and Dorothy Crooms, were themselves exemplar models for ministry. Pastor C founded and is CEO of the Charlie and Dorothy Crooms Foundation, a nonprofit organization which seeks to improve the wellness of the community.
Everyone, welcome Pastor W. Eric Crooms, a faith influencer. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity to join in this much needed conversation, Dr. Bullock.
Yes, it is definitely much needed. As I was talking earlier, this has been happening for a very long time, but I don't think that society has been dealing with it for a very long time. We have been, as I said, pushing it under the rug and just allowing individuals saying, using that phrase that I do not like, oh, that's just how they are.
Right.
So tell us what sparked you for wanting to take interest in the mental health arena as a pastor, because that's definitely not something that a lot of pastors are embarking on.
Yes, quite true on that. I am a faith influencer, and I do think the conversation has proceeded along mostly non-faith lines in terms of why mental illness is not being addressed in our community, and some of the reasons, the historical factors, the family factors, socio-political factors of that sort. Dr. Kevin Coakley writes, a central component of optimal mental health for Black people is having the ability to cope with and combat racism and discrimination. So, as a observer of the trends that have been happening, not only in our community but also in the nation in general, I've just and from a faith perspective, I have observed how we as believers are handling our mental aspect of living, and some of the things that some of the colloquialisms that we are using as defense mechanisms of the sort. But basically, my passion was inspired by just seeing people, especially God's people, in the trenches of spiritual warfare, and my desire to help them spiritually to find a solid foundation on how to proceed. Because when you think about it, we have a rich legacy of bearing up. We have a legacy of being strong, a legacy of strength that was left by our ancestors. But in so many ways, that legacy is coming back to kind of like turn the tables on us, so to speak, because we tend to think that, well, we just have to be strong and we just have to pray our way out of this. And a lot of our religious experience and indoctrination reinforces that. And so what I try to do is get people to understand that it's okay to pray, but it's also okay to seek therapy. God has ordained both of those. And we need to, I believe that God has, that God desires us to be at a place of emotional wellness. And scripture backs that up. If you read scripture, you'll see Psalm 147:3, God binds up the brokenhearted. And so we have to understand that, our spiritual and mental lives are interconnected, and they are not compartmentalized as we have been socialized to believe. So my interest in observing some of the trends that are happening in our community, but especially in our faith community. So as a pastor, as a faith influencer, as a faith leader, that is where it begins. I'm certainly not a mental health professional or expert, but I come from, or I speak from and observe from a ministry mindset.
Take my mic off mute. I said amen. And and that was, I mean, you gave us in that small segment of speaking so many dynamics that need to be addressed. And I'm glad we're going to do this for a whole month, because I just wrote down almost a whole list of things that can be talked about. But what I would like to talk about, we're going to take a little break. And I know that we had not thought about this prior to us speaking, but what you said about us having this legacy of strength.
Right.
I am of the mindset that that can be something that is detrimental to to humanity, the
Exactly.
legacy of strength, because it says that you have to, as you said, we have to always be strong, but that is almost impossible,
Right.
because life is going to give us some situations that we're going to have to be able to deal with more than prayer. We're going to need, as you said, we're going to need some practical things to put in our lives that are going to be parallel with prayer. Like light therapy, like yoga, Tai Chi, these meditation, these things are some of the things that I use on a consistent basis to keep the solid foundation. See, we had that foundation of, oh, we're strong Black people. Look at us. Look at all that we've come through, and look what we have obtained.
Right.
But at what price? At the
Correct.
price of, right. I had a conversation a couple weeks ago with some young ladies on the show, and we said we needed to apologize to our adult children, especially our male children, because we have been telling them so long, don't cry, be quiet, don't stop crying before I give you something to cry for. These
You're right.
things were so debilitating for our mental state later in life. And when we come back from our break, could you elaborate just a little bit on this strong persona that we're supposed to put up on when life is throwing everything it has our way?
Absolutely.
Just think about how we can address this.
Absolutely.
We'll be right back.
Breaking anything is always a challenging process, but life is one big process. A large series of steps we take to achieve a specific goal. Ending a repetitive pattern that is harmful for us is something we must commit to do because we need to show up as our best self and not the trapped imposter. It is time to eliminate some weight. The weight of doubt, shame, and disappointment. Get rid of thoughts of you are not enough. You are more than enough. You can break old patterns that were not the best representation of who you are. From this day forward, begin to pay attention to your patterns of behavior and see if they line up with your goals and dreams. Make sure to commit wholeheartedly to everything you do, intentionally making sure it is beneficial for promoting your growth to greatness. Let's dismantle all cycles that discourage instead of encourage. It is time to live a life in the abundance of love and peace, which will produce healthy habits that will lead us to being our best self. Always be awesome. On this journey we call life the road can sometimes seem long, winding, up and down hills, but if we just keep going step by step, you will get there. Some days will have mountains in view, but remember you are equipped for the climb. When the roads just smooth out and seems to be going really fast, hold on and take the ride. The smooth ride will prepare you for the life maze, where you feel like a little ball just making your way through. Take this opportunity to learn how to walk through and break down walls. Walls of insecurity and fear. Nothing can stop you unless you just quit. Never give up. Next, it may seem too hard to get to the road, you just can't land where you want. Eventually, your feet will hit solid ground. Do not worry if you feel alone or nervous because of the crowd around. Either way, you got this. You have your equipment ready and you will reach your destination. Until we get to the final place, keep your head up and your hands raised, celebrate every step. Keep moving embarking on this journey called life.
Just like that, we're back. Pastor Crooms, can you please elaborate for us on this strong persona?
Absolutely. I think the so-called strong persona stems from our collective experience coming up and out of slavery. No doubt that our ancestors had to be strong for that moment. I mean, when you think about the horrific um, um, dangers and everyday realities of slavery, of not only just slavery, but coming up out of slavery, you don't have anything. You don't have money. You don't own land, property, things of the nature. Basically, you own what's on your back, right? And so they had to be strong. They had to amplify this aura of strength that has been passed down to future generations, or passed up to future generations. And I think what's happened is due to the law of self-preservation, we have inoculated ourselves, so to speak, against the realities that surround us. And so we have to convince ourselves that, hey, I'm not supposed to cry. Like you said earlier, men aren't supposed to cry. I'm not supposed to show weakness, but I'm supposed to bear up and do my thing, handle it, so to speak. And what that has led to is a massive number of people in our community who basically are smiling, but there's so much pain behind the smile. And so some of these pains come forth through what we call cultural beliefs and connected to our religious standing, and cliches or colloquialisms that we adopt. I'm supposed to pray it away. This is not supposed to be happening to me. I'm supposed to be able to handle this. And so we have people living shattered lives, but not being able to, reach out and to invite a welcoming presence and understanding. And, it goes back to slavery, but it doesn't mean that we don't have the power to reverse it. We just have to begin to have real conversations with ourselves and with one another. And, forums like this, Stacey, are getting us headed in the right direction in terms of being able to push away from those false faces that we wear. Listen, it's tough. African Americans have been through the ringer in this country, okay? From slavery to this very moment, we have experienced so much. So collectively speaking, in the consider this, in the first 2 decades of the 20th century, Black people have experienced 3 life-altering events. Not just Black people, but we're talking about our people. Number 1, pandemic. 2, the rise of Trumpism. And 3, the racial antagonisms and hatred and incidents of racial antagonism, beginning with the George Floyd execution, even before George Floyd. But since George Floyd, look what has happened or transpired in our country. So this is wearing on us collectively. Okay.
Right.
I would say that it's a form of PTSD, but I'm going to, instead of calling it post-traumatic stress syndrome, which it is, or depression, I'm going to reference it as post-traumatic slavery syndrome. Okay, because again, our coping mechanisms, I believe, begin there and have proceeded all the way up to the 21st century. And what it has resulted in is a large percentage of our people succumbing to mental depression. I read recently, Stacey, that 80% of the attempted suicides in Black America was committed by men. Just the attempted suicides
Mhm.
attempted by men. So what does that say to you? It says that men are given into this false sense of strength, or they
Mhm.
have to be
Mhm.
strong, and we're not
Mhm.
dealing with our issues. We're not regurgitating our issues into strength. Listen, we don't need strong men. We need men who are going to accept their vulnerabilities and then turn those or transmute those vulnerabilities into strength.
Mhm.
That is what we need in our community today in terms of trying to reverse this feeling of hopelessness. And you read a scripture from Ephesians which talked about hope, and that's
Right.
where we trace it to biblically and spiritually, is a loss of hope.
Mhm.
I do not find it coincidental that uh, as belief systems in our community, and there are signs that our belief is on the downward spiral in Black America.
Mhm.
There's a percentage of Black believers who are not worshiping at all, who are
Mhm.
leaving the church altogether, who have stopped going to Bible study, et cetera. The list goes on and on and on.
Mhm.
And so, parallel to that trend is an uptick in suicides or suicide ideation in our community. Those two trends are not coincidental in my regard. I think the more we lose hope, the more we lose belief, the more we are going to succumb to our realities as Black people in America.
Absolutely. Because if we don't have hope, what what is there? What is there if we have nothing, or we feel like we have nothing to look forward to? Because, as you said, I'm supposed to be this, you know, piece of iron
Right,
that can't be broken or can't move. Sometimes the statements that we make in our culture, meaning African American culture, like black don't crack.
right,
Well,
right.
yes, it does.
Cracking all
Men-
of
Mentally, it has diminished. And the definition of hope is a feeling of expectation and desire for a certain thing to happen. And because it's diminishing, there's no expectation. There's nothing for us to say, oh, if I desire to purchase a home, but I've been through so much. I've lost jobs. My family is dismantled, and
right,
I must not be someone who is worthy of whatever the case is. But I'm supposed to be this person. It's not written in stone that we're supposed to be what our neighbors are, what the people are around us. I believe also that we just need to tap into the authenticity of who we are and
exactly.
work on that. And when we begin to build our self, then the hope comes back. Oh, I can accomplish this. I can, if you don't have a high school diploma, I can get my GED. I can go back to school. We all have the same rights and privileges, although some races or cultures may want us to think that we don't.
Right.
But we all have the same right and privilege. But because our lives, as you said, are shattering as you know we speak, people are beginning to say, I can't, but we can. And I believe that's why we're here having this conversation, to get people to understand that we can. And you mentioned earlier about psychology and slavery. I've read this book called Psychological Slavery.
Hmm.
It is awesome. It gave me an awareness and an opening. And No, I'm not a psychologist, but I do have a degree in psychology. So I feel that I'm able to approach this issue with some validity. But what is it that, why should we be aware? And what does that mean to you to explain to us why we should be aware of the mental health issues that are plaguing our country today?
Well, the poet Marvin Gaye once crooned, "What's going on?" Um, I think we need to encapsulate that poetic statement into our own personal lives and socially as well. Not only what's going on with me, but what's going on in my community. So it's, awareness to me is not only just perception or arriving at a point of perceiving what's going on, but moving to use that information, as I said earlier, to regurgitate into strength. Regurgitating the stress into strength and making it palpable for your own personal life and for the life of the community. So um, we just have to be aware of what is happening in every instance. I always tell my clients to ask three questions. Number one, how does my body feel? In terms of aches, pains, etc. Number two, what am I thinking? What are my thoughts? Am I thinking thoughts of, am I thinking negative thoughts, positive thoughts? Am I thinking suicidal thoughts, homicidal thoughts? What am I thinking on any given day in any given situation? And then thirdly, how are my relationships? Are my relationships healthy? Am I surrounded by people who contribute to my healthiness and my well-being? Or am I surrounded by people who are naysayers, who are perpetually negative about every dream? Girl, you can't do that. You don't have enough money. You don't have enough capital, things of that nature. So those three questions, I think, are a good start to us enhancing our awareness and making the effort to turn or to transmute what is going on into something positive. It goes back to the old adage, extract a positive from a negative. We have to have that ability. And the Bible talks about it. It gives us the power. We have the power to turn a negative into something positive. I mean, the whole story, the whole reality of Christ rising from the dead and ascended into heaven is the ultimate turning something that was negative into something that was salvifically positive for the entire
Mhm.
world. We have to allow that to trickle down into our personal life and do likewise.
Yes, for sure. Absolutely. When you said think about what you think about, there's a term called meta thinking, and that's exactly what it means. Think
Right.
about what you're thinking about, because until we start, as I say, pay attention, observe your thinking, your thought patterns, observe what you're thinking about. Because when we observe our behaviors, then we can make some adjustments, then we can align with who we are in God's eyes. And that gives us that power to make change, to make a difference. When we begin to evaluate and examine ourselves, then we can make some, I believe, some formidable changes, not just in us, but because it will matriculate out toward the things around us. Now, we
Exactly.
can't touch everybody, but right here in this platform right now, we're touching a lot of people, thousands of people. I know for sure. I just looked at my thing the other day and I'm at 23,000 subscribers. So at least at a minimum, 23,000 people have been, what's that? They have been, oh gosh, when you ring the little bell, it says ring the bell, notified. That's what it is. They have been notified that we are talking and having this conversation. And I want to ask you, where do you think, where else should this conversation begin?
That's a good question. And I do think that the conversation has begun in our community. And not just because it's Mental Health Awareness Month, but I do think that the most important place for me from a ministry or faith perspective is that the conversation is happening in our faith communities.
Mm-hmm.
And just preparing for this interview and reading some accounts, I have noticed that there are some members of clergy on the pastoral level who are initiating mental health programming into their churches, and they are
Mm-hmm.
inviting mental health professionals to come in and address what's going on in the community. So that's encouraging. I think it needs to happen on a much grander scale.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think any Black church in America should be open without some kind of emphasis on mental well-being. Now,
Mm-hmm.
there's I think it was a mid-century famous actress. I forgot her name. It eludes me right now. But she was that faith for Black people is the same as the Federal Reserve System in America, which means, she was accentuating how important faith is to Black people.
Mm-hmm.
And I agree with that. But I do think that we need to expand the conversation. When I was in seminary, there was some pushback among took a class, I think it was titled Biblical Counseling in the 21st Century. And there was this pushback against the notion of what we call the integrationist model, that in other words, in our community, the Black community, the only thing we should rely on is biblical standards for ensuring our spiritual and mental well-being. Well, the professor and I had a few conversations about that, and now that class is in the rearview mirror, I'm really, really even more convinced now that it's important for our people, for Black people, to understand that it's okay to pray, but it's also okay to get therapy. Now, in a
Mm-hmm.
wider general context, American context, other races, other ethnicities may have more resources, but in our community, we have been so denied and so, access to mental health remedies and to mental
Mm-hmm.
health settings has been denied us for so long that
Mm-hmm.
basically we're behind in that regard because we don't have access as much as other ethnics in America do. So we have to have that conversation and not be afraid. I mean, there are some ministers right here in Fort Worth that are actually preaching about the importance of mental health. I find that very encouraging.
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing my part. I'm writing about it. I'm video clipping about it. I'm blogging about it. I'm on,
Mm-hmm.
forums like this, talking about it because I think it's very important. So I'm like the sentry up in his station. I'm clanging the alarm here, trying to get
Yeah.
it done. And hey, something is going on here. Our people are losing hope,
Right.
belief dwindling. We've got to do something. We don't have to change the message, but I do think we have to look at some new methods. And like I said, there are some pastors who are actually inviting mental health professionals into their churches to address issues
Mm-hmm.
coming out of the pandemic
Mm-hmm.
and moving into an endemic. I think that's very important.
Yes. I'm just we're gonna we're not gonna take a break yet, but let me just mention this. So I'm happy that you're bringing up the fact that pastoral individuals are bringing up mental health because a lot of people just don't have knowledge about it.
Right.
And because, there's no knowledge about it, then our perception of it may be skewed. And then there's the unknown. I don't know what's going to happen. What are they going to ask me when I go there? And how is this going to come about? And then that back to those old adages that were used. What happens in this house stays in this house.
Right.
It has caused so much damage. And when we come back, I'm going to talk about that a little bit from the study that I did as to why we need to apologize to our adult children, because some of the things I know that I said and I did, I watched my children as they started to become adults have these issues. And I was like, wow, why are you like that? And then now, like I said, I'm studying, I'm becoming more aware, I'm getting this knowledge and understanding of the words that I spoke and what they actually did. Because as we know, words have the ability to transform thinking.
Correct.
And if we have the wrong words and we're transforming, children's thinking, and it could put them in a bad position to have self-doubt, these are just some of the things that came up, to have self-doubt, position to want to have others always validating them. We wonder why a lot of people are walking around, and this will be one of our topics, walking around and they're not emotionally intelligent. And that's because of some of the simple words that we thought were simple that were spoken. That old adage again, some of this, I'm just uprooting stuff and throwing it out. Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. That is a lie.
Right.
Those words will dismantle you and cause you to crumble and be this unhealthy adult. Just like we have things that they say come through the bloodline as hereditary, as illnesses and things like that. So we're going to take a little break, but when we come back, let's talk about why we should have a mental health checkup, just like we should have a physical body checkup. And we'll be right back.
Resilience is necessary for all of us. It gives us the ability to recover quickly from difficulties of any kind. Psychologically, resilience is our mind's potential to cope with a crisis and return to a healthy state of mind. Resilience is the core strength you use to lift the load of life. The secret to maintaining and building to adopt a growth mindset, nurture your emotional intelligence, hone in on our problem-solving skills. We must learn from problems, take them as opportunities to grow. That's what resilience looks like. It is the demonstration of growth and maturity in every area of our lives.
Staying committed during life's challenges has requirements. First, we must make sound choices for our good. It is necessary to stay focused. The key is to have a target or well-defined focal point. What is the point of success we want to reach? We must decide to be dedicated to the best of who we are. Commitment will keep your feet moving. As long as there is movement, there is change. Make dedication, devotion, allegiance, loyalty, and faithfulness a promise to yourself. Keep you at the center and maintain balance by having a determined concentration. Producing mental strength which increases our power to succeed. Nothing worth having comes easy. Stay the course. If you want to learn more about being committed to you, email info@powerandresilience.com and send a request for more information. Always be awesome.
And just like that, we're back. So a couple more things. And actually, our last commercial talked about a whole lot of the things that when we apologize to our children, or when we show our now going from this strong character persona to this vulnerable character, now we can help our children get away from having a difficulty in making decisions as adults. Like I said, seeking the constant validation, struggling with failure. Have you ever seen a sore loser?
Right.
And we wonder why some people are throwing chairs and throwing their helmets up into the crowd and all kinds of different things. And no, I'm not just focusing on sports players, but this is happening every single day, that because of some of the things that were said and done and not having the awareness, that our now adult children have become so dependent upon others that they are looking to them for things like, who's going to take care of me? I need you to show me how to pay this bill. I need you show me how to get my electricity turned on. These are things that we need to ensure that our children are confident. Our society is confident. People coming from welfare now coming into this awareness of who they are. There are some skills, or called life skills, that that people need to learn. And this is something that I heavily teach my clients: life skills on how to function in every day. And you know, I also teach them about getting checkups. But now I need to tell them more about having not just your physical body checkup, get a mental health wellness check. And why is that so important to us?
Yeah, I think it's very important. Um, in my profession as a coach, I often deal with, obviously the physical uh, attributes of that profession in terms of health-related consequences. So, well woman exams, we talk about those kinds of things and how often, she has gotten, or when was her last one. But in the mental realm, I think it's just as important to have a mental yearly checkup. And but there are so many things that we can do as well to just do that on a daily basis as well. Checking
Mm-hmm.
in with ourselves mentally each day. And the way I do that personally is through affirmation, um, scripture reading, meditation. I do some form of natural body movement. Um, just reading, expanding my mind, things of that nature, and breathing exercises as well. So I do think it's important to do it. I would elevate a mental yearly checkup for everybody, yes, and I think it's very, very, very important. But I also think we need to find ways to do it on a daily basis, because when you wake up and you put 2 feet on the floor, you are, number one, you're blessed because
Mm-hmm.
you're on top of the soil and not below it. And
Right.
so once you open your eyes and you discover that the good Lord has invited you to participate in this day that he has made. The Lord said, wake up, I want you to participate in this day that I have made. And the question we need to be asking ourselves is, how am I going to participate in this day the
Mm-hmm.
Lord has made? And if you don't have another answer, the psalmist gives you the answer right there in the same scripture. I'm going to rejoice and be glad in it, in spite of what's going on, in spite of the limitations, in spite of my surroundings, my environment, my financial challenges, my relational challenges, etc., I am going to rejoice and be glad in this day. So, yeah, a yearly mental wellness checkup, but also find ways to do it every day of your life. Because, hey, listen, you don't know what you're going to encounter in this society on any given day. You just never know. It could be something as simple as your boss just cursing you out, or telling you you're not doing a good job, or you're not getting that job, that promotion you've been wanting for so long. How are you going to respond? Not react. We don't want you to react. We want you to respond, because good mental health means that you respond and you don't react. And so we got to do that every day. I mean, maybe it's simplified in a very basic way, but Stacey, when I get up, I thank God for the priceless moment of waking up, and then I ask God, Lord, touch my mind.
Right. Right. Because, that I also have another profession. So when I wake up, I am definitely grateful for being awake and getting myself what I call centered. And I believe the only way for me to be centered is that the controller of the center, which is God,
there you go,
has his how can I say, is I'm open to listen. I'm open to not just listening, but obeying what is being said. I know some people don't like that word obey, but if I'm told to get up, sometimes, it'll just come to your mind. No, God is not going to come and knock on your door and say, hey, do this today. It's not going to be that, but there will be this voice, and it's going to sound like your voice to tell you to do something. Maybe add some lemon to your water today. Drink more water today. For prime example, this morning, I wanted to lay in the bed, but I knew that we had to have this video, have this dialogue. And I said, you know what? No, it was like, Stacey, get up right now and get your exercise done right now, because you're not going to have time the rest of the day to do it, because you have other things to do. So I had to be obedient, flip the covers back, not wanting to, but I had to, because I wanted to make sure that I was focused on my day, that, exercise does some wonderful things for your mindset. And I'm going to let you close us out on giving us reasons why we should exercise for our mind, not just our bodies.
Exactly. And one more thing on how we regurgitate ourselves. I like that word, centered. That's the key word, centered. You know what? It used to be, Stacey, it used to be when you talk to yourself, you were considered crazy. Mm-hmm. Now, today, if you don't talk to yourself, you are indeed crazy. And what I mean by that is, if you are not giving yourself, feeding your own spirit and mind and soul positivity on a daily basis, check your pulse, because there may be something wrong with you. Positive self-talk is so important to mental well-being. If you keep telling yourself the same old story, guess what? That story is going to play out in your life every single day. And even if you don't think your circumstances are changing as quickly as you would like for them to change, keep speaking positive thoughts, affirmations, Bible-based affirmations in your life. Now, as far as how the body or the mind responds to exercise, it's totally in favor of the fact that when we get up and move, it does wonders for our mind. Just things, when you exercise, the body is not just it's not just exercise for the body, it's also exercise for the brain. So you're not just working out your body, you're working out your mind as well. In fact, the mind responds to movement, especially in the parts of your brain that guide or structure depressive feelings. So just getting up and moving makes you feel better, as opposed to sitting on the sofa flipping through the channels and wondering, what are you going to do? What's going to happen next, etc. Get up and move. 20 minutes can just change the entire structure of your brain chemistry. Now, obviously, science does suggest that exercise helps individuals who are clinically depressed. Now, I'm not in any way minimalizing what the clinical depressive mood does to people. And I'm not going to sit here and say that if you are clinically depressed, just get up and do a 20-minute workout. No way. Most people who are dealing with prolonged mental anxiety, one of the best things that they can do is just get up and move. Get that brain to releasing what we call feel-good endorphins. And that's exactly what happens when your body moves. When you get up and you walk for 20 minutes, the sweat is going. What's the first thing you say after that workout? I feel good. And that's what you want to do. You want to feel good. So, and not only that, Stacey, the evidence also shows that people who are less active report higher levels of anxious feelings. And so the science is there. God made us where he gave us 2 legs, 2 feet, in most cases, obviously, if you were born healthy. He gave us the means to move. He created us. He wired us to move. We were not wired to just sit idly, but we were created and wired to move. And the evidence shows that there's just so many studies out there that show that the more you move, the better you are, the better you feel mentally, spiritually, and otherwise. So it's the crux of my of my argument from a faith perspective. We need spiritual food, yes, food for our soul, but we also need to make sure that we're treating our bodies in the way that God intended us to. And my personal mantra in that regard is I exercise my body to the glory of God. So many different studies support that. And, it's just out there. We just need to get up and move more and become more aware of the dynamics of movement.
Great. That is awesome. I know I do say that especially on those days when I don't feel like exercising, but I do it anyway. And when I'm done, I'm like, oh, I'm so glad I did that. Literally
Right.
feels like I have fresh blood flowing through my veins, and creativity and the thoughts that open up in my mind make me more um, capable, would I say, of getting things done in a quicker way, more, can I say, elaborate, if I would. I'm
Right.
able to take situations or instances that I'm reading about or whatever I'm looking at, and having a keen focus, not just haphazardly looking over things. Exercise really helps. I thank you for joining us today.
Viewers like I'm sorry, just,
That's okay.
if I had to give your viewers just a quick recipe, if you ask me, well, Pastor C, what can I do right now? I would say increase your physical activity, monitor your diet, stay away from sugar, processed foods, things of that nature, unhealthy fats. Journal your feelings. Stay connected with positive people. So important. Who's in your ear will eventually will drift down into your spirit. Write and rewrite and recite affirmations on a daily basis. And then, Stacey, one thing that we haven't mentioned is take advantage of wellness resources right where you are. Do you know that a lot of companies offer some type of wellness benefit? I mean, even if it's just a toll-free line that you can call, you can go to a psychologist and your company pays for it, things of that nature. And then mostly, Stacey, believe in the power of your purpose and strength and your determination. So those are the 5 or 6 things that I would say to a person who would ask, well, what can I do right now? But most important, don't be afraid to talk about it. Get the conversation started right in your family. If it's uncomfortable, so what? It's just uncomfortable. Just get that conversation started about mental well-being.
Yes, there are many things that are uncomfortable in life, but we have to deal with them. We have to find the positive way to go through them
Right.
and come out on the other side shining bright, because that's what will happen when we approach those difficult situations. We will find that it wasn't as difficult as we thought. Once it's out there and we get a hold of it and have some awareness about what's going on, because sometimes we don't even know that a person is having a specific thought, especially like in relationships. If we don't talk about it, we won't know about it, and then we won't be able to do anything about it. So
Exactly.
as Pastor C said, let's get up and do something today. If you just get up and walk around your house or walk down your street and come back in the house, that's a start. That is a great start. So we thank you, Pastor C, for coming today, and we look forward to you being here with us for the rest of the month every Friday at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time. And I know I didn't say it when we started, but this is definitely a Free Your Mind Friday show. So we look forward to seeing you next week, and have a wonderful day. But most importantly, always be awesome.